I'd like to share how I ended up with a septum piercing, a nose ring. Partly it's just a story of getting a piercing done, but that's just the surface level of it. That's the visual aspect. It also has deep roots into playing around with identity, challenging our own beliefs of who we are and play with how we're perceived in society. So about 5 years ago, I think, 4.5, yeah, I, you know, it was one of those years where life can be a bit challenging. And I always thought that women with nose rings, they had this like fierce freedom or power about them, while at the same time kind of embodying femininity. And I secretly admired it, and perhaps part of me was judging it as well, which had nothing really to do with them. I guess I had not fully made peace with those aspects of myself. And I guess I had a DS about what will other people think, although I probably would never admit that that's what it was like. But I had this like yearning to play with that identity, with those roles. Who would I be if I carried this with the same grace that I see other women do? And am I allowed to do that? And at some point, at the end of the summer, I was in one of these fuck it modes. I'm just gonna do me. So I booked a session with a piercing studio, and I think it was just like the day before. And no, actually, that wasn't true. Let me back up one more. Initially, I thought, I can't do this permanently. I cannot pierce myself and then show up in all aspects of life. Because yes, I was partly working as like a yoga teacher or holding meditation workshops, and there it was fine. I could absolutely embody being a woman with a nose piercing. But then I also work as a software developer. And could I go in business meetings or sit in a corporate environment with a nose piercing? Not if I was allowed, more like, can I embody it, or will it make me shrink? Which is funny in a way, because IT people, I mean, they can show up, they have no dress code because developers don't know the rules. So I don't know why this piercing all of a sudden would have some kind of divisive difference when no rules apply anyway in that position. But for me, it held a bit of power. And so I wasn't sure whether I can show up in all of my life with a piercing, because the thing with piercings is that they kind of stick with you all the time, especially during the healing process. You can't take them in and out. If they're there all the time. So initially, actually, I ordered online one of these fake piercings, this little clip-on that you kind of put in and use. And I used it at home, quite enjoying it. Like it felt natural to me. Like when you find a pair of clothes and you're like, yes, this feels like me. And I think I even went to the grocery store with it once, where I was like somehow super excited and nervous of how the cashier would react to this. Like I was super aware that I had jewelry in my face. And I think the cashier, he didn't even notice. Like he could not have cared less. It was not a big thing for his day, which was both a bit disappointing, but I think it also meant like the world doesn't really give it doesn't care. But I didn't wear it in public or like with people I knew because I guess I didn't fully want to admit that I wanted to have a piercing because my full self wasn't behind it. Like I can't own it really. And I think now we get back to where I was before. I had the end of the summer where I had one of those fuck it. I'm just gonna if I'm going to wait for owning everything I do, well, I'm going to have to wait forever. So I just booked a time in the piercing studio. I came in and I think I had it actually dawned on me that piercings mean piercing ear skin. So she took up this huge needle and I was like doing the math in my head and like, oh, that's going through, yeah, like the nerve endings where you sneeze. That's where we're gonna pierce with this spear. Hoo-ha. So I braced myself for impact. She kind of measured out where apparently your nose, I haven't thought about this, but most people's nose aren't completely symmetrical. So you cannot pierce it according to some kind of mathematical formula because you have to try it out on the person's nose before. So in many cases, the piercing might be a bit crooked because that's the way human faces look. Luckily, she was quite experienced, so I think she found the right level of crookedness for me. And once she was done, I braced myself for impact and preparing that it was going to hurt like a boo-ha. But it didn't. It wasn't that bad, actually. I think I was more winding myself up in anticipation. So she pierced it, and then she took in this little healing ring you have. And then I walked out. And I felt so happy. Like, actually, this is a picture, see if I can get it up here, of the day I did the piercing, and this is from Instagram, so I shared it on Instagram. I think I had the caption was reading something like, who knows if this is a midlife crisis, but hey, we're all in it for the ride, or something along that line. And I think that's what I really thought. Because part of me was like, Josephine, isn't this just which is my name, by the way, if I haven't introduced myself. Nice to meet you. My name is Josephine. So I was thinking to myself, Josephine, how do you know that this isn't just a midlife crisis? Because, well, I'm 42 now. So like 5 years ago, I was 37 or 38. So I was just about approaching 40, which is the prime time for midlife crisis. And I remember thinking like, well, who cares if it is? Who said that midlife crises are embarrassing? Like, that's when your life kind of invites you into playing with your identity. Something has become rigid over the decades, and then you hit midlife crisis, and you need to do something radical. Like, there is this societal patronizing way of looking at men who buys a motorcycle. But I think I more have the view of like, you go, dude. Like, you live your life. You live out this energy. And if it's your calling in life, then you'll be riding that bike until the horizon of eternity. And if it's not, well, you had a few cool photo shoots. You get to make a loud noise in the traffic jam. What's the harm with that? Why do we not celebrate these things? I mean, some midlife crisis is quite destructive and hurtful to our relationships and other people, but most of them are not. They're quite harmless. Maybe you do an Ironman. Maybe you get a nose piercing. I think like suppressing the need for a midlife crisis or the need for have some other energy expressed through you, I think that's stagnation. And I don't think it comes from self-love. I think it comes from wanting to control your self-image for yourself and for other people. Yeah, so I thought that, hey, if I get away to have a life crisis by doing a tiny little hole in my nose, well, it's a pretty cheap price to pay. And the day after, I mean, for me, it was obvious. It was like a big red stop sign, this piercing. It felt so huge and it felt like everyone was watching it. And then I went and hung out with a friend whom I've known for like 10 years or so. And I don't know if we went for a walk or for a coffee. And after like an hour or so, I was like, hey, you, what about like, have you not noticed? You have nothing to say about my piercing? And her response was like, oh, but haven't you always had that? And I felt like, come on. Like, I do this big rebellious thing that's like breaking loose from the chains of who I think I am. And one of my close friends doesn't even notice. I mean, the anticlimax of that is like, oh wow, people really do not care. Like, it's not a big deal, which was actually quite empowering, or like freeing maybe. Like, obviously, I can claim this thing. If this energy wants to move through me, it is already part of my manifestation. I don't need to own it, it is already expressing through me. But it also pointed me towards how, what's the word? Like, how strong our identities are. And sometimes we don't notice it until we challenge it. Like, everything about me is the same. Now I have this little piece of metal in my nose. And for me, all of a sudden, it shakes the core of how I envision myself. Like, it's tiny. It's it disappears in all the other features I have. Mm. And the funny thing also is this. We think as adults that we should have figured out who we are. I think we're doing us a disservice. Just this idea that we are not like fluid, that we're not allowed to rediscover ourselves in every moment. That means that the impulses that come up, if they don't match the image I have of myself, I will suppress them. I will make my life less alive by having carved out my identity. I am not my thoughts about myself. And I'm definitely not my nose ring. That is just how life is expressing through me right now. And will it stay forever? Well, who knows? Last year, I actually thought about getting rid of it because it's kind of, in a way, it's filled its purpose. I don't think about it now. Sometimes I even forget that I have it. And sometimes I very much remember it because I had this incident like, I don't know, a few months ago. I was having a bit of a cold, and I think I was at work or in some kind of gathering, and you have a sniffy nose, so you kind of, and I was talking to a bit of different people, and then I went to the bathroom and I realized I had a piece of tissue stuck in the jewelry of my nose ring. And first there was a bit of embarrassment of like, oh my God, that's not, I can't believe that just happened. And then there was just this loving laughter of like, look at you, here you are dressing yourself up in your, you know, um, expressing yourself, allowing your beauty to express in the way that I feel comfortable with. And then it ends up being stuck with a tissue and like, not at all like dignified. And I was like, people must have seen that, but they didn't say anything. And it's like, ooh, this initial thought of like, oh, what do they think of me? And what do they think of me? Yeah, that's really up to them. Probably most of them just felt sorry for me or like, oh no, she doesn't know. That's how she's walking around, like when you forgot toilet paper on your shoes or whatever. It's humanness unfolding. I'm not in control about anything. I'm not in control how people perceive me, and I cannot perceive myself from the outside, so I don't know what I look like. I cannot control tissue not getting stuck in my bling bling. Yeah. So it's an ongoing teacher in unexpected ways. Yeah, but yeah, so I thought about maybe getting rid of it last year, but then I spent some time in southern England last summer, and I walked into one of these stores, just like, what is it called? You just walk around, being in a new environment, super excited, not being in a rush anywhere, taking a coffee here and there, just exploring the surroundings. And it was this cute little shop with lots of different piercings. I wasn't looking for a new one, and I found one that's just like called me, almost like it had already decided, like, I'm going home with you. So I bought it. It was a bit more bling bling than the one I had before. And again, apparently, I had made my identification in what kind of piercings I'm allowed to have. Oh, a funny human conundrums. So then I had to have another little dialogue with myself of like, oh really? So how much bling bling can I have? Who draws the line and where does it draw? I remember I got this rush of memories from kindergarten and from when I was a kid. I had this pink little skirt, which was like made of this undergarment. Like it's quite stiff. Like women used to have it under their skirts back in the days. Anyway, so it made it into this little ballerina skirt, and I loved this skirt. Like I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. Before you really become aware of how the world perceives you. And I wanted to wear it everywhere. Like I would go out in winter with my overall on and have this little tutu pink ballerina skirt on it. And when I see kids now who's obviously dressed themselves, they have a Batman costume, a Cinderella dress, and then a unicorn hat on. And I'm just like, you go, girl, or you go, little fella. Don't let don't let the world dim that light of yours. And I guess this is my little rebellion for that inner me who loved her pink ballerina skirt. That is sacred energy. That is sacred. That's life manifesting through us. And it's a loss that life makes us conform to dim that light. It doesn't have to express as a nose piercing or as a pink skirt. I think it expresses different in everyone. But every human that don't express that impulse out of a fear of feeling quirky or feeling odd or whatever is a loss to the whole of humanity. This fragrance of uniqueness, of oddness, of expressing for no other reason than it wants to be expressed. That is such a jewel to all of us. At least that's my own experience. And I think midlife crisis is a way to awaken us, like shake us in the bones of like, no, you sacrificed something growing up that wasn't worth sacrificing. Your lust for adventure, your way to express. Bring it back. It's still there. It's still hiding inside. Yes. So that's how I ended up with my nose ring. Might look insignificant from the outside, but it was part of a transformation, a liberation process, I guess you could say. And I usually think about that when I look at people who show up in ways I don't understand, who made choices about their appearance or about the way they live their life that I wouldn't have made. To not get stuck in my own judgment, but rather go on an exploration, use as much tools I have myself of trying to understand this person. Like, what would what would have to go through me in order for expressing this way? It might not be true, but at least this person opens up a little opportunity for me to live a life I don't live, to see more of how aliveness manifests in this world. Yeah. Do you have stories like that? Or maybe even more so, do you have something that wants to express that's being hindered or hampered? And what would it take to start exploring that? Maybe you don't need to go all the way to do the piercing, but maybe just order the little fake clip-on. Allow yourself to play with that energy. Yes, I wish that for all of us. Thank you for joining me on this little exploration, and I hope to see you next time, my friend.